Good evening, everybody. Tonight is Thursday. I have been crazy trying to figure out the days. This week, I have not known what day it is. So the fact that it's Thursday, I'm just like, if the calendar says so, that's where I am. But happy Thursday. This is Bible Study Live with Connie and Friends. And I do have one of my sisters on right now, and you'll see her in a moment. But we've been talking about spring cleaning for the month of March, because, that's the time you talk about it. And our sister Latrice did a powerful message last week, which was such a blessing. And she's here with us again tonight. So I'm so happy to have her on the call. But tonight we're talking about spring cleaning bad habits. And I was thinking about the bad habits that we engage in, specifically those. I was thinking about most of the time when people start doing New Year's resolutions, it either has to do with what they are saying, trying to control their mouths a little better, or it has to do with something body related, some habit they need to change. That's typically what resolutions are about, is changing a habit to being a more positive habit. And so tonight we're looking at the bad habit of what we say with our mouths, how we can train our mouths to more effectively and in a more godly manner, say what we needed to say and not say what we don't need it to say. But I wanted to share a few quotes about habits before we get into the scriptures about what we say. So the first quote, which is one of my favorites, it says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." And that quote is Will Durant. And it's, like I said, it's one of my favorite quotes. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. There were two other quotes when I was looking up to figure out who said that one. I saw two other quotes that were so powerful that I've decided to share them tonight as well. The first one was this. Listen to this. "We get into the habit of living before acquiring the habit of thinking." I thought that was really powerful. That is by Albert Camus. He said that. And it's just, and when you think about it, it makes sense, because you're a little kid, you don't even know how to talk yet, but you're learning how to live. And we keep up that. I know, right? Latrice, she hearted that, because that's a powerful statement. We get into the habit of living before acquiring the habit of thinking. That's just, it really hit me about how in anything, we often learn the mechanics of it before we learn the reasoning behind it and thinking behind it. So it's just something really important to think about. And then the last one, which has been attributed and said multiple different ways, but it's all the same. And it's been attributed to both Samuel Smiles, to Gandhi, to Lao Tzu, but sow a thought and you reap an act. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. Yeah, that was really powerful. I thought that was really powerful. And we do know that our habits determine where we're going to be tomorrow, the next week, the next year. And so it is important during spring cleaning. Let's take a look at some of our bad habits and toss them out as well and replace them with some good ones. We'll talk about that replacement in just a moment. So I want to start with looking at some scriptures that deal with words. First, Psalm 19 and verse 14, which says, where we should all live. We should all just put this up on our mirrors and our windows and our computers. But it says, "May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer." So that's the declaration. That's the goal. That's where we're heading. That's what we want our habits to be as it relates to what comes out of our mouth. May the words of our mouth and the meditation of our heart. And as I said, Latrice last week talked about spring cleaning of the heart and mind. So you got to clean out those negative thoughts and clear your heart so that the meditation of your heart will be pleasing in the Lord's sight. So not only the words, but as we know, Matthew 12:34, which is one of my favorite scriptures, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. One of my favorites. In case you don't know how to remember it, It's Matthew 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how I remember it. Matthew 1, 2, 3, 4, which is 12:34. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So when I hear people say something real, nice, nasty, and they say, oh, I'm just kidding, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. I'm like, okay, you can call it just kidding. It's Proverbs even talks about people talking about just kidding. You don't get to say just kidding. You're still responsible for what comes out of your mouth. So now look at Proverbs 17 and verse 28. Here's what is interesting about these next scriptures that I'm going to be reading in 17 and then in 29. It talks about not guarding your mouth basically makes you a fool. So in 17:28, it says, even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue. So it's when we open our mouth and feel like I just needed to get it said. Somebody had to say it. Somebody needed to get told all of those things that we get wrapped up in if somebody needed to. And so I just had to, or we let our emotions get the better of us. That's where we get into trouble. That makes us no different from a fool. Look at Proverbs 29, and there are two verses. Look at 29:11 and 29:20. 29:11 says, a fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control. And again, changing habits. When you feel like you have to fly off the handle, I have to say this, I can't hold this in, you got to change your habits. You're so used to doing it that it's become a habit, but it is changeable. And then look at verse 20. Do you see a man who speaks in haste? There is more hope for a fool than for him. So again, before you fly off the handle, you let those emotions get the better of you, calm it down, change the habit. Your normal habit might be, I can't control myself. Like those are the things that we tell ourselves. I can't help it. I have to say it. I can't help it. You actually can. You really can. The way to do it is just stop talking. Just don't say anything. Just stop. Think about what you want to say and don't say it. And it works both directions. So I'll talk about the other direction as well in just a moment. But the last one in Proverbs I want to show you is Proverbs 21:23. He who guards his mouth and his tongue keeps himself from calamity. There's a benefit to guarding our mouth, to breaking the bad habit of saying more than we need to say, of flying off the handle, speaking with haste. There are benefits to learn how not to do that. And then our last scripture is James. And I wanted to just choose one portion of it, but there's a part of it that's one of my favorite lines. So I want to include that too. So James 1, verses 19 through 26. And it says, my dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. You see how they're all tied in together, flying off the handle. You get angry, your mouth goes, it's all tied in. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. This is the part about changing the habits. Listen to this. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like a man who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. That's a powerful scripture. It's one of my all-time favorites. But the man who looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues to do this, not forgetting what he has heard, but doing it, he will be blessed in what he does. If anyone considers himself religious and yet does not keep a tight rein on his tongue, he deceives himself and his religion is worthless. Woo, child. So that's in James. And like I said, that one about, forgetting what you look like when you walk away from the mirror. So that gets into us breaking resolutions. You know, we say we want to do this, we don't keep our word. We say this is in us, this is who we want to be, how we want to represent ourselves. We know we're an ambassador of Christ, even if you're not yet. You are, whether you mean to be or not, because he created us all. But let's say you're a willing ambassador of Christ, but you don't have a rein on your tongue. You're not a good ambassador. You're just not. And that's why, going back to that first scripture in Psalm 19:14, let the meditation of my heart and the words of my mouth be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Or it says sometimes my strength and my redeemer. That's so important. That's what we want. We want that. When we're expelling those bad habits, that's what we want, is we want to be able to be a blessing and let our words be acceptable in God's sight. And I'll just say this. In breaking a habit, the best way to do it is you just start small. It's not as though you can turn everything around because, I don't want to do that and just go from here. Although, frankly, there are ways to do that too. It should be as easy as taking off your jacket and dropping it on the floor. It should be that easy. But habits are sometimes muscle memory. So you get ready to say something because you're used to saying it. Like I said, what's that scripture? What's that quote? We get into the habit of living before acquiring the habit of thinking. So you started talking before you really knew how to think, right? So now you're getting yourself into the habit of thinking before you speak. And as it says, listen first. One of the easiest ways to do it, I have found, is to have a notepad handy. When you find your blood is starting to boil, grab your notepad, your journal, whatever it might be, and start writing. Start writing. Don't let the words come out of your mouth. Write it down first. Write it down first before you speak it. Sleep on it. Let it simmer. Like if you're prone to, talking when you should not talk, write down what you would say. That's just the first step. Get yourself a little notepad, a little journal. And when you find yourself getting ready, you can even stop yourself mid-sentence. I've done it. There are things that I've wanted to say. Somebody said something, I was ready to go there, neck crank and all. And then I realized, let me not say that. One of the biggest ways to do that is to start asking yourself all the time, what is my ultimate objective? Ask yourself before you're angry. Ask yourself before you get into a conversation. When you're going to have a meeting with somebody, especially if you know it's somebody who's a little difficult, a little challenging, think about, what do I want the objective to be from this meeting? What do I want to leave with? What do I want to leave them with? Being more deliberate, putting more thought into it before you even have the interaction is what's going to change the habit. If you go into it like, oh, I hate meeting with this person, let me just go in here and get this over with, you're already going into it without the right rein on your tongue and on your emotions that you need to have. Stopping to say, okay, I know I'm going to have this unpleasant meeting. The only reason I'm having it is because we need to get on the same page about whatever it is, thus and such. Here are the points I want to make. Here's what I want him or her to understand or receive. You go into it with an intention. But at all times, if you start thinking, what do I want the ultimate goal to be here? That is the key. And if you even find yourself in an escalation, stopping and saying, 1 second, I just need to put you on hold 1 second, and walk away. That's something you can do in the moment. Walk away. And when you walk away, say, how do I want this to resolve? Rather than once that blood is boiling, just letting it keep going until things are said that you can't take back. Put a pause in it. Hold on 1 quick second. I need 1 moment, and then walk away. Breathe. Take a moment. And then say, how do I want this to resolve? And if it's, I want to still have a relationship with this person when it's all over, sometimes you come back and say, I just need to say I love you, and I will call you later. First of all, you're going to shock them. So, and if they want to keep going, you can just decide, I'm not going to say anything else, because all I know is that I love you and I don't want this to go any further. So those are some of the things that you can do. Now, let me share with you a personal story. So back in the day when I was shy and didn't talk as much as I do now, and I wanted to get out of my shyness, my Aunt Trudy would say to me, what would you say if you weren't shy? And I would say, oh, well, I would say this and that. And I would ask this question and do that thing. And then she'd say, well, do that. Well, I can't. Well, why not? Because I'm shy. And again, I hadn't yet learned how to control my thoughts and my heart and all of that. I didn't know how to do that. And so she kept it in my ear. The things that you would say if you weren't shy. And they weren't like I was going to get somebody told. It was just asking for what I wanted, or things like that, that were just normal things that a shy person might hesitate to ask. And the way I trained myself was through Trudy's help of thinking about, if I wasn't shy, what would I ask? What would I say? And then started practicing saying that. I started practicing saying those things. If I wasn't shy, I would say this. If I wasn't shy, I would ask this. I would raise my hand and say, may I ask a question? Whatever it was. And habit by habit, that's what changed me, going from the shy girl to the more outgoing, talkative person that I am now. And then I had to learn how to put a rein on it. So, pendulum swung a little bit. But I will tell you, that is why Proverbs is my first favorite book of the Bible is Proverbs, because it talks about reining in your tongue, putting a leash on it. There's a lot about watch those words, be careful. We all know the scripture, life and death is in the power of the tongue. Got to be careful of that. Just be careful. And so you can break that bad habit of saying whatever you feel like, whenever you feel like, and then having to deal with the collateral damage one step at a time. Get a journal, get a note card, little notepad, something, and take a breath. Stop yourself. And if you're in the middle of it, say, I need to just put a pause here. I'll be right back. I just need to 1 second. And then step off screen, put the phone on hold, walk around, take deep breaths, decide what you want your ultimate goal to be. And if it's that you want a relationship with that person, usually it is, otherwise, why argue? If you want a relationship with that person, then you can come back and say, I love you. And I need to go right now. I just want you to know I love you. If you don't want a relationship with that person, you can come back and say, I'm not going to argue with you anymore. Have a blessed day. Oh. There's that. But as the scripture says, flying off the handle, that's not the vision. That's a bad habit that can be broken. It can be broken. So I'm going to bring my sisters on screen now. So you got to turn your cameras on, ladies. Here I come. All right. There they are. Hello. So I need somebody to unmute.
I'll unmute.
Oh,
that was
good.
absolutely powerful. And it made me think of several things. The first thing is I definitely need to pay attention to my bad habits and do something. So I'm going to think about that and focus on that. I was talking to my sister earlier today, and when you were talking about, people making these nice, nasty comments, she's reading a book right now. And one of the things that the author of the book says is when, someone tries to pull you into negativity or negative comments, he says, and I had to write this down, no, I'm not buying that dress because it doesn't look good on me. So no, I'm not going to buy that. Or, yeah, that sounds good, but you know what? I'm not going to wear that because it doesn't fit. So those made me smile and made me laugh. Another thing that you were talking about that hit home to me is, when you have something to say, I'll write it down. One thing that a friend of mine, Maria in California, one thing that we do, we send each other these rant text messages, right? So if someone makes me mad, I just write the text as if I'm going to send it to the person who made me angry, right? And I just go at it and text because sometimes, writing it down is good, but you feel good when you press send, right? So sending it to Maria. And so I get these text messages from her and I'm like, okay, she's at it again. And we don't respond. I just know she's going through it. needed to get it off of the chest, right? And leave it at that. So that's something fun that we do. And the last thing is that truly hit home was the, you know what, I love you. And I had this instant yesterday. Someone that I love dearly has been going through a lot, and just so much drama and chaos, and trying to pull people into it. And I just don't want to even be a part of it. So I received a text and they said, do you want to hear my side of the story? So I didn't respond. Then they sent another text and said, oh, so this is what we're doing. We're not gonna talk anymore. And I thought about it and I wrote back and I said, life is too short to not speak to the people that I love. And I love you and I'm praying for you. And she wrote back and said, you know what? I love you. So it just diffused the situation. So for me tonight, every point you hit on truly just like touched my heart in such a deep way. And scripture, just powerful. So thank you for that.
Oh, what a blessing. What a blessing. And yeah, that whole, I know what you mean about that hit and send, because there is something, and don't be on a keyboard with an email. You just, you know, pushing those keys down into the keyboard, they get stuck so hard. But I know that feeling, but yes, there are times when I can look at my journal and see how hard I was pressing with the pen because it went through to the other side. I was like, what? Child, you were salty. So I understand. But getting it out, that's the thing. You got to get it out sometimes, but not necessarily on the person. That may not lead to your ultimate objective with that person. So sometimes you just have to step away. And like your friend, you kind of responded, oh, so we're just not going to, I know sometimes it feels hurtful to not respond, but sometimes it's the most loving thing you can do. And you respond back that I love you. I love you. Like that's all you can do. And you know, life is too short. I love you. So, but recognizing in that moment, I want a long-term relationship with you. I'm not trying to say I don't, but I can't go there with you right now. And you don't want to say that. You can't say, I can't go there with you because that triggers something else. So your response of, I love you was perfect. It was so perfect. Hey, Spring.
Hey. I got triggered just a little bit with the one scripture that I do say all the time, and I taught my kids. It's a paraphrase of the scripture, but it's out of the mouth the heart speaks. That's what I've always taught my kids, and that I know the scripture doesn't read exactly that way, so I don't even know how I got to there. But that's what I say. And if I had a contentious divorce, I didn't. It was so amicable. The judge was confused. But if I had, I probably would have used that scripture in the divorce if it had been contentious, because that's one thing that I told my ex-husband, because he kept saying, but I was just kidding. Like, after all these years, I was just kidding. You didn't know I was just kidding. All the mean things that had been said and all that stuff that just cut to the heart. And I had to stand by that scripture. And I also stood by Maya Angelou. When people show you who they are, you better believe them. And I did not want my kids growing up thinking that was the way things could be, that you could just say any and anything to anybody and come behind it with well, I didn't mean that. Well, you not only did you say it once, you said it a bunch of times. And at one point, at what point do you not mean it?
Right.
You know? And so that was it. I won't say too much more, but
yeah. And then you said it in front of our kids, or those like you're saying, when those kinds of things of I'm just kidding or I didn't mean it, when you're also teaching people how to treat their spouse.
And it's not, and when you're doing it in front of not just the kids, but really like anybody, and can come back. So you also trigger to these other adults who know you and look up to you, that they could treat your wife any kind of way.
Yep.
And there's only so much of that you can take. There's not enough salve to heal those wounds.
Yeah.
Because they really do hurt. So it's not whoever said words don't hurt, they were lying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
You know, I
reckless
mean,
words pierce like a
it's no reason to throw fits. I know that's why the parents were telling us that, like, you don't go fighting somebody because somebody said something. That's true. But you can't say that words don't hurt, because
Yeah.
that's what kills children's spirits all the
Absolutely.
time, no matter where it's coming from. It's really how children's spirits, get damaged from words.
Absolutely. Yep. And not just children, as we know.
Not just children. Like I said, I could have used it in a divorce case, and I was however old I was, 40 something,
Right.
So.
Right. Gina, did you want to share anything or ask anything, add anything?
No, I was on a call late, but I am enjoying hearing the discussion.
Oh, okay. And I know my Brian came in a little late and she said the same thing. She wished she had heard it from the beginning. I'll make sure to post the link to the Bible study, and I'll send it to my prayer warrior sisters. It was spring cleaning those bad habits about what comes out of our mouth. And yeah, Matthew 12:34 spring is just one of my favorites. I did say that all through my marriage, just so you know. I actually said it constantly because there was a lot of, I'm just kidding. Oh, you're so sensitive. You're just so sensitive. I'm like, no, buddy. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So you can call it what you want to, but you're saying what you feel, and just kidding doesn't excuse it. So it's powerful. And again, like Latrice was saying, those nice, nasty people who say those things, you got to distance yourself from those people who feel like that's an okay thing to do. As you said, that Maya Angelou quote, when they show you who they are, believe them the first time. When they start doing that, and especially in front of other people, like they're nice to you one-on-one, but then they get in front of other people and cut you up for the laughs or what. See ya. So I had an ex-friend who did something like that. And I was floored. I was just not expecting it. I had this dress. It was a beautiful dress that I'd worn to a wedding, and she'd seen me in it, and she was just like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And then we were around a group of friends, and they said, oh, what did you wear? And so I was telling them, and she said, she looked like an effing slut. And I was like, wait, what? And I said, you told me the dress was beautiful. Oh, right. I mean, you had your back out. You know, you look like an effing slut. I was so done with her. And then later she said, I was just kidding. Really? No, thank you. No, thank you. I was done with her. That was it. That was it. So, Brian, just even in hearing what you heard, is there anything you want to share or any comment you want to make?
No, I can't really speak to it. Everything is pretty much out of context. So thank you, though.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you, Facebook and YouTube, for watching, whether you watch live or you watch the replay. I hope this blessed you. And I know it blessed me having my sisters here and your comments. So until next week, we will see you later.